if you can shed those skins, those conditionings, the pleasing and the feelings of failure, like you're not living up to who you are, it slowly dissipates. It's like, you're relieving yourself of all the false beliefs of what you needed to be, and you finally come to yourself and you're like, I'm pleased.
Welcome to Living God's Light, a podcast to help you strengthen your spirituality and your connection with God. We are so happy to have you as a part of the Living God's Light family.
Hi, welcome to the Living God's Light podcast. One of the things we're going to talk about is the 10 principles that came out in the book, The Light After Death. And the very first of those principles, I was actually kind of surprised. I was expecting it to be love or something, but the first principle was actually be authentic. And so the team had a quick poll, and we decided we're going to hand this off to the most authentic out of the four of us, and that would be Lindsay.
I'm so pleased you guys all voted for me. I mean, these are all authentic gentlemen, but thank you. I would say I've had kind of a run with learning about authenticity and what that means for me, but also what it means for the world. Thanks. I feel like I was surprised to learn that authenticity was the first principle in your book too. And I remember asking you, Lynn, like you said, can you guess what the first principle is? And I said, love. Like most of us, but that's really what most of us have been taught. Like, love is the most important. Of course love is important. But authenticity was the first most important principle. And I thought about that and thought, that makes sense. The more authentic you can be in yourself in the way that God created you, the more you're giving love to others in the world by being your authentic self, which also involves saying no, telling the truth when you don't want to, talking about uncomfortable things. It's all the things. So it's not just like this flighty butterfly and everything. It's like, I came here to be this person. The more I honor this person, the more people can connect with me authentically. And that is love. That, helping people feel seen in who they truly are is love of the highest degree from God. So in my journey in authenticity, I feel like it's been a shedding of skins constantly. And that's uncomfortable, but I've found more and more every skin that I shed, it's like just a little glimmer of more myself that I love. So I guess while I'm saying this, it's like authenticity and love are really like closely intertwined. Together, But I have learned to love myself in a whole different way than I ever knew possible because I've allowed my true self. And I guess what that means is really saying what you think, feeling how you feel, being exactly what you are in that moment. I mean, like I'm not feeling like 100% this morning, but I'm here and I'm like 75. Show up as you are, and like more people and yourself included are willing to wrap their arms around you when you're just, this is who I am today. And I've never felt like I could be more authentic with a group of people than you crazies, honestly. I was 25 minutes late to this today. I'll say that, and I just,
and so we were supposed to start 25 minutes after our start time, so perfect.
But, it's just, you don't have to remember anything. When you're authentic, telling the truth, just, it's like, there's no remembering of, well, maybe I'll just tell them that this happened, or maybe, how that goes. Everyone's done it. But it's just really like, I was late today. That's it.
Well, one of the things that, and I'm going to hand it out, heads up, it's coming your way in just a second. But as I was learning about the authenticity and all of those, everything having to do with that, I realized that being authentic doesn't mean being rude or a jerk or anything. And it also doesn't mean being content with where you are. You don't want to be stagnant in that authentic. But you can still grow and evolve and expand in love and capability. But I love what you said, that the authenticity and love, because really the authenticity, I think, is that direct path to loving yourself. And once you know and really accept where you're at, good things, bad things, all the rest, once you can acknowledge that in yourself, it's so much easier to grow beyond it.
Yep, I totally agree with that.
And then when you talked about like shedding and all the rest, Ellen, you want to share with us some of your training experiences with
expertise
shedding things?
So one of the interesting things is, over the last couple years, I have been studying shamanism, specifically the Muniqui branch, which comes out of Peru. And we study archetypes and we study different types of energy and different things. The very first thing we start out with when we are learning about this is the archetype of the serpent. And if you've ever spent any time studying...
So that's the first one you
That's
learned?
the first one that I learned.
Carry on.
It's the very first one that I learned. And so a serpent, in order to grow, has to do something. And so as Lindsay was talking about shedding skins and stepping outside of that, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be talking about this. In order to grow, a serpent has to shed its skin. And it's not an easy process. And there's some really important things about this that we can learn. In order to shed that skin, it has to go and rub up against these rocks that are rough and just uncomfortable. And it's not easy. It's about loosening the skin and getting so that the serpent can slide out and expand.
Maybe even call it opening your vulnerabilities.
That might be a really good way of talking about that. Because I don't know anybody who's vulnerable or should be vulnerable or that we have vulnerabilities. That's just weird. But so as a part of that process, we're struggling and having to grow and shed that skin. Something that occurred to me that I thought was really amazing about that is this serpent or snake doesn't bemoan the fact that it has to shed the skin. It doesn't go back and hang out and cuddle with the skin and hang out with the skin.
Wait. Snakes don't have therapists?
No. They don't go and have a little spot where they stick all their skins and go and roll in it and wallow and hang out and, cry about its old skin and all of that. It just moves on. It just says, thank you for taking care of me for so long. And it moves forward. It just does it. And I think we as people struggle in that area because all we do is bemoan the fact that, oh, my life is miserable, or I had to do this and it was just really hard. And we live in that space of being fixated on the skin or whatever it is that we were shedding, whether it's an old habit, whether it's a relationship, whether it's something like that we have been so attached to, whether it's an addiction. I kind of like Coke Zero. Maybe you've noticed. Usually if we're on a call or something, they see me with my can. I'm drinking my Coke Zero. One of those things that we're attached to, and that when we're stepping outside of those spaces, we are so stuck holding on to those things. And if we are willing to let go of them and thank them for the experience and say, that was a really crappy experience, but I learned so much, and showing that appreciation, I think, is huge for authenticity because it's about what's here.
Yeah.
It's about understanding who we are. It's about being okay with setting boundaries and saying, this is who I am. This is my space. Growing up and over the last 50 some odd years, I'm going to say that I spend a lot of time just doing the things I was told to do because I was told to do them. I didn't have any boundaries. I wasn't authentic to myself. I just did whatever people told me to do because maybe they knew what they were doing and I was just so used to that. So I didn't feel like I was authentic with myself. So as we step into that space of being more authentic, I think it makes a huge difference to be able to look at those pieces and those skins as we're shedding them and being able to say, thank you. I can step away from that.
Yeah.
And enjoy the experience. and the understanding and the growth. Because I always like to say there's only two things we get to take with us when we go where Vinney went. Not the rest of us are probably not going to get that second chance and get to come back, but we get to take two things with us. And what are they? Who we know, the relationships,
Yep.
and the things that we learned along the way.
Yep.
Everything else is physical. We only get to take that with us. So I think that's a big part of being authentic, is understanding how that works.
Yep.
And I think, to me, the path of authenticity is that exact thing, that a lot of us, we start building a house of cards, and to peel away all those cards or peel away all those extra skins or labels that we put on ourselves, we have to get to our base, get to our foundation. And our foundation, if you look, as we're little kids, as we're little children, we come in extremely authentic. And by the time we're almost going to exit this life in our late 80s or 90s or 100s, we also are very authentic. So somehow we figure it out when we come in, and we're figuring it out right before we leave. It's that in-between space that we have to learn what our rocks are that can help peel away those false senses, those false identities. And you know, for a lot of us, it's going to be different stuff. And that's where, like, a good therapist, a good friend, a good experience, a life-changing experience could be that rock that helps peel away that false persona. And underneath that, you find the ability to grow. And in true vulnerability, you grow the most.
And something that came to mind that I've heard you say before that I think is key to this, getting back to you mentioning how authenticity and love are so intertwined, that if you realize that God loves you as you are right now, and there's nothing that you can do to make God love you any more or less, because God's love for you is perfect. Not that God is necessarily content for you to be where you are forever. I mean, still learn and grow and everything, but once you understand that God totally loves you as you are, who else do you need to please?
Yeah.
Really. And just connect with that love and love yourself, and then decide who you want to grow into. What do you want to shed? What do you want to become to strengthen that connection with God, to help other people strengthen theirs, and just be yourself and love yourself like God loves you.
And I think connecting with, like, who else do you have to please except for God? And I think pleasing is connected to the conditions that we believe and subscribe to, the skins that we're referring to. It's like we feel these feelings of failure when we're not what our parents hoped we would be. We're not what we feel like we have to be in the career world. We, so many, like, ideals that we've created in our own minds. And when you can shed those skins, and I mean, you look at kids, they're the best example of being authentic. Like you said, like, I look at my 4-year-old and she's just like, your breath stinks, Mom, and I'm like, okay. Like, it's just direct, nothing attached to it. And so it's just like, you think about that, and if you can shed those skins, those conditionings, the pleasing and the feelings of failure, like you're not living up to who you are, it slowly dissipates. It's like, you're relieving yourself of all the false beliefs of what you needed to be, and you finally come to yourself and you're like, I'm pleased. And I'm pleased with who I am.
I think that's a key part of why that authenticity is the first principle, because until you come to that acceptance of who you are, where you are, and then decide where you want to go, that opens up the door to living the rest of them.
Yeah, to living God's light.
Yeah.
That's why it's the foundational principle. And we can put on this persona or this image of perfection, but if we're not truly perfect inside, we're robbing the inside of all that growth. And because we cannot grow where we're falsifying something. We can't. It's just not possible. And I think that's the enemy of today is people are not authentic. People are continually portraying or putting out an image of perfection, and everyone else looks at that and thinks that, oh wow, look at this Instagram, look at this Facebook, everybody's so perfect. And then they look at their own home, their own life, and all they see is imperfection. They think they're the one off, and they're not. We're all running the imperfect game.
Oh, yeah.
From my experience and somebody who's literally been to the other side and back, the only perfect people are the ones that haven't been here yet, or the ones who already went over there and did more work over there. So even over there, you're imperfect as you do your own progress. And it's really neat though. Some of the biggest game changers here in the world are the ones that were vulnerably open about their own weaknesses and their own insecurities, and they were able to turn them into strengths.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the next episodes as we talk about the rest of the principles. But I think this has been a great foundation.
Agreed.
Yes.
Initial talk. Ellen, anything that you want to add about authenticity as we wrap up here?
I think just understanding self and that it's okay to not be perfect, and that we're all on a path of learning, and that we're all on a path of growth is the perfect way to understand authenticity. Just be yourself. Just do what feels like it's going to advance you and grow you to the place where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And understand that God loves us exactly how we are, not for who we want to be, not for who we used to be, but who we are right now, this moment, who we're going to be in the future. God's going to love us. Who we've been in the past, God loves us. And there's no way to leverage that love. And so there's no need to put on this false sense of perfection. All that comes from not wanting to feel the vulnerability. But just like we were talking, peel away that skin and let the vulnerable self out so it can grow and harden and become a strength. But again, it goes back to God loving us. God loves us exactly how we are.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, Lindsay, you started us out. You want to wrap us up?
I just want to say that I love that this is like a principle and a standard here at Living God's Light and in the community. But usually and this is a good tool if you're just coming out trying to say the things that you want to say and you're a little uncomfortable, but all of us do this when we say, in my authenticity, I gotta go. Or like something, So like, that's one of my favorite things is like, we've fostered a place where we can be authentic. We kind of make light of it and it's great, but you can do it too.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. And thank you for joining us on another episode of Living God's Light podcast. Remember to like, subscribe, click the bell on YouTube, and all of that fun stuff so you can stay up to date on everything that we're doing. And go see us at livinggodslight.com, where you'll find all kinds of ways to be active in our community. Look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody. Bye. Thank you for joining us on the Living God's Light podcast. You can help keep the show going through getting merch at livinggodslight.com or contributing what you think the show is worth on our website or by going through Patreon. Thank you for sharing your light with the world. You are making a difference, and we love you.